27th school committee meeting being called to order. Would you all please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
For which is
to the republic which is stand,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Okay.
First order of business is to congratulate the newly sworn-in members to the school committee, Mr. De Silva, Mrs. Picard, and Mr. Andriozzi. Congratulations and welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, item number 3, is the reorganization of the school committee, which is election of officers. For nomination of the chair, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Goho.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata, and welcome back, Mrs. Picard, Mr. Andriozzi, and Mr. De Silva. At this time, nominations are in order for the position of chairperson. Are there any nominations for the position of chairperson for the North Providence School Committee?
Superintendent Goho,
Yes, Mr. Corsini.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Frank Pilata for chairman of the North Providence School Committee.
The name of Dr. Frank Pilata has been placed in nomination. Are there any counter nominations? Are there any counter nominations? Are there any counter nominations? Being that there are no counter nominations, we will have a roll call vote for the election of Dr. Frank Pilata as school committee chairperson. Mr. Corsini,
Aye.
Mr. Pollock,
Chuck, you're muted.
I was on mute. Aye.
Mrs. Picard,
Aye.
Mr. Andriozzi,
Aye.
Mr. Marciano,
Aye.
Mr. De Silva,
Aye.
Dr. Pilata.
Aye.
By a vote of 7 yeas and 0 nays, Dr. Frank Pilata is elected chairperson of the North Providence School Committee. Congratulations, Dr. Pilata.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for your continued support. I have a good group of people who are loyal and dedicated and committed to our staff and our students, and I would hope that we continue down that path and continue to support our educators. Thank you very much. At this time, pursuant to the Town of North Providence Charter, I hereby call the meeting of the North Providence School Committee to order for the purpose of electing the vice chairperson of the school committee. At this time, nominations are in order for the position of vice chairman.
Dr. Pilata,
Mr. Pollock,
I'd be proud to nominate Rod De Silva for vice chair.
the name of Rod De Silva has been placed in nomination. Are there any counter nominations? Are there any counter nominations? Are there any counter nominations? Being that there are no counter nominations, we'll have a roll call vote for Mr. Rod De Silva as school committee vice chairperson. Mr. Corsini,
Aye.
Mr. Marciano,
Aye.
Mr. Pollock,
Aye.
Mrs. Picard,
Aye.
Mr. Andriozzi,
Aye.
Mr. De Silva.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. By a vote of 7 yeas and no nays, Mr. Rod De Silva has been elected vice chairperson of the North Providence School Committee. Congratulations, Mr. De Silva.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Pilata. Appreciate it.
Any words of wisdom?
I thought those were the words of wisdom.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next order of business is approval of minutes. We have open session minutes, public session minutes on December 9th and December 16th. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to
So
approve.
move.
Mr. Marciano, seconded
Second.
by
Second.
Mr. Pollak. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have minutes for an executive session on December 9th.
Move that the executive session minutes be closed at the appropriate sections of the law apply.
Motion made
Second.
by Mr. Marciano, seconded by
Second. I do. Second.
Mr. Andriozzi. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is correspondence. We have no correspondence. Public comment. We have no request for public comment. Item number 7, consent agenda. I'll turn that over to Mr. Goho.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata. I would request a motion by the school committee to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So
So
moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Picard, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Andriozzi.
Thank you.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Mr. De Silva?
Not a question, a comment. It's happy in a way and sad in a way that we lose Louise Bello, Miss Hogan, and a longtime custodian, Louis Barbado. I know them all very well, and our district was better when they were here, and we wish them a happy retirement.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments?
Thank you for that, Mr. De Silva. I was going to mention that 3 outstanding employees, so thank you for acknowledging them.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata. At this time, Ms. Casanelli and I will present the fiscal year 22 school department requested budget. And I would ask Mr. Nahijian to place the presentation on the screen. Okay, next slide, Ralph. Okay, so the fiscal year 22 projected budget. We are requesting a projection of $61,769,424.
Whoever is being
The
recorded on the screen.
approved budget for 2021, which is the current school year, is $58,668,107.
Want to continue.
The hard dollar difference is $3,101,317. The percent difference is a total of 5.28%. However, the increase that we will be requesting of the town is less than 4% as required by state law. As you will see what that percent is as we get further into the budget presentation. We did want to give the district and the community a little bit of an idea of the impact that the COVID pandemic has had on the budget. So there are many, many ways that the pandemic has impacted the budget, ways that we may not even fully realize for a while. But some of the factors that are apparent at this point, first of all, with staffing, as you know, we have an increased number of staff members in all categories who are unable to work in the COVID environment, and that requires substitutes. This costs us anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 a month between paying the employees their accrued sick time, as well as then paying the substitute employee to fill the needed position. Custodial overtime has been an issue, so that we can keep our schools clean and sanitized on a regular basis. And I really have to commend the job that our teachers are doing, particularly at the K through 8 level, in terms of the impact on prep time. All of our teachers are doing a phenomenal job with virtual and in-person demands, but the loss of teacher prep time is an issue that really is exhausting our faculty, but they're doing a great job. And contractually, we do owe them for the lost missed prep time which at this point would account to approximately $14,000. And that will be increasing because that is $14,000 at this point in the school year. So this happens when teachers are out and no substitutes are available. So this is a statewide problem. And so the kids have to be supervised. So the teachers give up their preps to supervise the children when there's a teacher who is absent and no other substitute to cover them. As you know, we've made a significant investment in technology. We used COVID money for the first year of the 3-year lease to purchase Chromebooks for our students. We knew at the time that we needed to do that, especially with virtual days and virtual snow days and virtual professional development days and students virtually learning and unable to come to school. So we had to provide those devices, and the COVID money allowed us to do that for year 1. However, that is going to be an ongoing cost in year 2 and in year 3. And then as those devices become out of circulation, they will need to be replaced. So that will be an ongoing cost. We've had to increase Wi-Fi devices, data plans, webcams, microphones, approximately $297,000. And as I said, the first year expenses were covered by the COVID funds. We have 2 additional years on the Chromebook lease in addition to the equipment that I just mentioned. Those will be ongoing costs. We've had to purchase HEPA machines and UV lighting for all of our buildings at a cost at this point of approximately $53,000. The initial purchase will be reimbursed by the CRF funds. I just want to caution, it does say in there on that slide that the purchases have been reimbursed. We expect that they will be, but at this point, we have not seen that reimbursement as yet. So that's pending. The ongoing expenses will be the replacement of the filters and the bulbs as they are no longer functioning. So that's an ongoing cost that we had to add into the budget for increases. Replacement filters are approximately $25 each, and we have at least one in every classroom in the district, pretty much, and UV bulbs in each building. They average about $110,000 each, although some are larger based on the size of the unit and the size of the building. So we've budgeted approximately $6,000 for replacement filters and bulbs for fiscal year 22. Special education services, there is a significant increase for additional online licenses for our students so that we could provide them with their IEP services that are required by federal law, but do so for those students who are learning virtually. So there is a cost to meet those needs in a virtual environment. Electronic signature for virtual IEP meetings, seeing that those meetings could not take place in person. Online assessments, increase in outside nursing services. We've had a number of nurses who are out on leave, and we've had to bring in nurses for our sub nurses, but also we've had an increase in the number of students who need one-to-one nurses, as we are seeing an increase in high need students into our district. Medical supplies, CNA services for our teacher assistants, for our teacher assistant absences, and compensatory services such as speech and OT. In a pandemic world, it is extremely difficult to provide speech and OT services as they are close contact services, and especially difficult to provide those services for students who are learning virtually. So we still are mandated by law to provide those services. So that will result in what we call compensatory services, which is time that we will have to spend paying personnel either over the summer or above and beyond the school day to provide those services when conditions allow. So there's approximately a $200,000 impact there. And these expenses will be ongoing during the pandemic as students continue to not be able to come to school, yet we're still required by federal law to provide the services as written in the IEP. Supplies, cleaning supplies, personal protective equipment, electrical supplies, HVAC supplies, building signs and barriers, etc. An additional $100,000 spent, reimbursed by our CRF funds. Ongoing expenses estimated to be approximately $50,000 per year for these items. So we just wanted to give the community a little bit of an understanding of exactly how the COVID pandemic has impacted the budget, with the clarification that the federal funds have provided some relief, but they have not provided all of the costs that the district is experiencing. Okay, so on the next slide, projected revenues. The local appropriation, we're projecting or requesting in 2022, 34,037,237. In 21, we have 32, we are receiving 32,850,260. So that is a dollar increase of 1.186977, or approximately 3.48% request to the town for an increase in their local appropriation. State aid in 2022, subject to change, 26,513,187. State aid in 2021 is 24,573,847. So at this point, we are projecting a 1.395503, so 1.395 million increase in state aid, which certainly is good news. However, I have to caution that that is subject to change. There are a number of factors that we have to consider. First of all, that's the projected state aid, but it is subject to the governor's budget. It is subject to the eventual budget that is passed by the legislature, hopefully in the summer. And then there are two other pandemic-related factors that could significantly impact that number in a negative way. Not to get too much in the weeds, but there are two factors which impact state aid. The first is enrollment, and as you're going to see in one of our slides, at this point in the school year, we are down approximately 88 students, primarily in the early grades, pre-K and kindergarten, and that is primarily due to the pandemic and parents keeping their children at home for those grades or sending them to private schools in those grades. So when the state reevaluates our enrollment in March, it will show a decline of 88 students, which could potentially lower the state aid number. Yet those students, or a good majority of them, will be back in our system next year, like in all likelihood, with the pandemic being lessened. The other piece is state aid is largely dependent on the number of free and reduced lunch applications submitted by families. And as you know, the federal government has made free and reduced lunch, or has made all meals free to all children during this current school year. So there is no incentive or no need in the minds of families to submit an application for a free or reduced lunch, because the lunches are already free for the entire school year for all families. So at this point, last year, we had about 800 free and reduced lunch applications. At this point, we have about 200 that have been submitted. Our central office staff, our finance office, our schools, our principals, and our school social workers are working really, really hard to contact families with vigorous reach out, to communicate with families, also with the assistance of Chartwells, to get those applications in, because they have a direct impact on our state aid. So these are two other factors which could lower the projected state aid. Now, there is some talk that the state is aware of all of these issues and is hoping to come to some sort of resolution on these two issues, which will potentially mitigate or offset some of the potential damage that could be done by these two factors. Next slide. Thanks, Ralph. As I said, we are projecting a decrease. Well, we have currently a decrease of 88 students. There are 31 fewer students at the high school, 14 at the middle school, 45 at the elementary school, primarily K and pre-K, which in communication with families, we know it's directly related to the pandemic. So the enrollment decrease will impact state funding, as I said. One thing I do want to point out, however, is, as I mentioned last year, we have seen an increase in a number of multilingual learners, or ELL students, now called multilingual learners. We now have 257 in the district, and by federal and state definition, North Providence is now considered what's called a high incidence district, which is if you have 150 students or more, you are considered 150 MLL students or more, you are considered a high incidence district requiring more services, including a full-time MLL coordinator, which we currently do not have, but are planning to address in the future. Next slide. So some of the projected areas of increase in the budget. So the budget is a status quo budget in terms of new or additional personnel. We are not requesting any additional personnel in the budget. In fact, you will find that our personnel has declined since last year. But these are the drivers for the increase. So the teacher step increases are approximately $308,000. The third year of the contract calls for a 2.35% increase, $599,777. The third year of the contract also inserts a third professional development day, which is a much needed professional development day to ensure that our teachers remain current in their practice. And it's a priority of the state and the commissioner as well. So the committee had great foresight in negotiating this in the last contract. And we now have 4 professional development days in our contract, which I think puts us right in the top half of the state. That will come with a cost of $140,000. Professional and technical services. There is an increase there of about $1,070,391. An increase in special ed services and RIDE mandated new curriculum, math and science. So I'll go through this slide and then I'll go back to those two and ask Ms. Van Avery, Ms. Casanelli, and Ms. Seitzinger if they want to add anything in terms of what is the makeup of those 2 increases. Other purchase services includes increases in tuitions, mainly charter schools, but also special ed and busing. Materials and supplies, mostly an increase in electricity for all of the devices that we are now running for the pandemic. Custodial and computer supplies, all of the technology supplies that we need for the distance learning. And building improvements, a boiler replacement at Wayland, a PA system at Greystone, et cetera. So all of those significant increases. There are other areas of the budget that have decreased. So that's why all of those increases do not total everything that we are asking for. But at this point, I'm going to go first to professional and technical services and ask, would that be Ms. Casanelli? Would you like to add to that? And then you can defer to Louise or Cindy.
We do have other slides that break it down a little further.
Okay.
After that, I think it's
That's
right
right.
after the FTE. Yeah, it starts to go through the different.
Okay, go ahead. Next slide, Ralph. Okay, just to give you an idea of our personnel, which is the biggest driver of the budget. Contracted teachers, we are staying the same. There's no increase in teachers, 323 the current year and 323 for next year. Now the 323 is a reduction of 2 teachers. We eliminated 2 teaching positions that were vacant last year. So we were at 325 at this point last year. We are now at 323 and we will stay at 323 next year. Teacher assistants stay the same. Principals and assistant principals, we have 13. That is a reduction of 1. As you know, the school committee eliminated the position of dean of students at the high school. So that number was 14. It currently is 13 and will remain 13. Secretaries remain the same. Central office administration remain the same. Clerks and secretary at the central office remain the same. Custodial and maintenance remain the same. Other, 4.5. That is a decrease of 1. And that will stay at 4.5. But the decrease for this current school year is that the school committee eliminated the position of the HR generalist last year, which is why we have 4.5 in the current year and will remain at 4.5. So the number of FTEs stays the same, but represents an overall decrease. Crossing guards, we've reduced 1, and that we were able to do that with the redistricting, and yard monitors have stayed the same. Next slide. Projection on fringe benefits. Self-insured medical, our consultant has told us to budget for a 6% increase in Blue Cross in the working rate based on our plan, our staff benefits, and our usage within the district. As you know, we're self-insured. The actual working rates projected, we will know more in March or April. Certified pension, the state is mandating an increase there from 14.5% to 14.78, which is approximately $35,000 increase. FICA is increasing by $86,000. Medicare is increasing by $22,000, and unemployment insurance claims by $25,000. Special education services. So there is an increase there of 703,000. One of the things I will say, Ms. Van Avery and her team and the building principals and our special ed staff, they've done a tremendous job reducing out of district placements. When Ms. Van Avery first became the special ed director, I believe the number was somewhere in the low 70s. And now here we are 2 years later, and our out of district placement numbers, Ms. Van Avery, I'm sure you have it at the tip of your tongue, but it's in the low 40s, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Cindy? Okay, so I'll wait for Cindy. But I do know it has gone down significantly. And as you know, we have had to cut $800,000 or $900,000 from our budget each of the last 2 years when our requested increase was not able to be met. And in each of those 2 years, the bulk of those cuts came in special education. So Ms. Van Avery was able to make sure that the district remained on budget with significant cuts. And she did that primarily by reducing the number of out-of-district placements. However, that have students of higher need being serviced in their home district, which ethically and legally is the right thing to do. We have a need for services that need to be provided within the district. We also have new families moving into the district, and we're finding that they are coming with a higher need. So we have an increase in one-to-one nursing services with additional nursing needs for transportation as well, students who need a nurse actually on the bus. We are seeing an increase in services for the visually impaired, the hearing impaired, physical therapy, and specialized programming services as well. And these expenses are partially reimbursed by Medicaid, but not, to an amount that is significant. Ms. Seitzinger can speak about curriculum. There is an increase of $260,000 in the curriculum budget. And let me just say, obviously, the most important thing that we do as a school system is teach so that our students can learn and achieve, and teach the curriculum. So there is really nothing more important in our budget, I think, than the curriculum line and the curriculum item. But one piece of information that you need to have and the public needs to have is that the new education reform law, which everybody is fully well aware of, part of that law mandated that school districts implement curriculum in English, math, and science that are approved by the Rhode Island Department of Ed. They call it green lighted, meaning they have been given a green light as acceptable, rigorous curriculum to be implemented in the schools. So we had some areas where our curriculum was fine, but we had other areas where our curriculum was not green lighted and needs to be replaced. And that work needs to be done by 2024, I believe, in all areas. And so we are beginning our work in science and math. It really is not something that we can prolong because this is a mandated state law. Next slide. There is an increase in electricity, again, primarily because of the devices that we're running for the pandemic. As I mentioned, technology supplies, laptops, Chromebooks, all of the supplies that are needed for the increase in technology, and as well as custodial supplies to continue keeping our buildings cleaned and sanitized, and all of our employees having appropriate masks and PPE. Next slide. Projected other purchase services. As I mentioned, we have special needs tuitions that are increasing $985,000. This increase represents the increase in tuition costs from the prior year based on current enrollment plus 2 additional students. So that $985,000, those are the rates that are set by the out-of-district placements where our students currently attend. So as I said, Ms. Van Avery has reduced the number, but if you take the current number of students that we have placed out of district, the tuition increases that are set by those institutions, not by us, will total $985,000. So we have no control over the cost of the tuition that those entities are going to be charging the district. Charter school tuitions is increasing by $200,000. This is a big increase in charter school tuitions. And as you know, we spend about over $500,000 just on Achievement First, which is just one charter school. In transportation, there is a significant increase in statewide. We are at the mercy of the state in terms of their rates, and our own contract with Durham That total is approximately $130,000. Next slide. Some of the capital outlays, as you know, we do not have a capital budget. We do not have capital funds that are provided to us. And I'm not sure how many elected officials are aware that as part of the education reform law, there is a maintenance of effort, a minimum maintenance of effort for capital projects that is supposed to be set aside. I believe it's 2.5% of the budget is supposed to be set aside on a yearly basis. This law is about a year or two old. For capital projects, and it's supposed to be set aside and spent on capital projects. The whole goal of this was to force school districts to maintain their buildings. So that new law is in place. We're supposed to set aside 2.5% of our budget, which my estimation is at least over $1 million, if not definitely more, probably like closer to 2 million. But the needs that we've identified, we need a new PA system at Greystone Elementary School, and as you know, that would be a safety issue. With lockdowns and any other emergencies that occur in the school, with a PA system that currently is not functioning and is too old to be repaired. We do need a new boiler at Wayland Elementary School. We literally have to have someone go there virtually every day and fill it up with buckets of water to get us through the winter. But we will not be able to do that any longer after this year. So we do need a new boiler at Wayland. And so those are the primary capital outlay projects that we're identifying. Next slide. Just to show you the projected state aid to education and the history of that since 2015, 2016, up until 2021, 2022. That shows you the amount of state aid increases that we have had. And then 1 year in 2019, 2020, we had the $35,000 decrease. Next slide, which is the last slide. It shows the town appropriation since 2017, and the projected requested increase of $1,186,977, which is approximately 3.48%, which is what we will be requesting of the town at this point. So certainly we can take any questions from members of the school committee. I hope this information was informative. Dr. Pilata has set up a budget workshop for the full school committee next Wednesday, February 3rd. And then if needed, a second budget workshop the following Wednesday, February 10th, with the intention of approving the budget at the regular February school committee meeting, and then turning it over to the town at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Coho. Well-presented budget, very detailed, very informative. I'm going to ask the committee not to get into the detail relative to questions at this time. You probably need time to take a look at that, and we could dig into the budget with very specific questions on February 3rd when we have our workshop. However, I would ask members of the committee if you want any clarification on any of the issues that have been presented by Mr. Coho. That's certainly your option at this point for any clarifications. Does anyone have clarifications? Mrs. Picard?
So in order for me to do my due diligence for the budget workshop, I do have requests that I need more information on.
Yeah.
So do you want me to make those now?
Sure.
Okay.
They'll be ready for the budget workshop.
Right, that's what, and if
Yes.
just to, I would like my, whatever I'm asking for in packet form, it gets to be too much in the digital.
Sure.
So one of my requests are the actuals for 2019 and 2018. I want to make sure that I'm comparing, because I know 2020 is kind of a wash because of COVID, the pandemic. It's not really a good number for me to look at, but if I could see the actuals for 2019 and 2018. And there are a couple of areas where I need more line items. I know I appreciate the high level overview, but for me to really know the differences. So one of those, I need the professional and tech services by line item. Other purchase services, including the educational, the 220. Materials and supplies, and the building improvements. So like, for example, like the 5400 series, probably the whole thing, but overall, the ones that had the highest increases were 54-11, 54-322, 54,324, 54,602, and 54,902. Along with that, the teacher step chart by step by school, the assignment of TAs, special ed versus non-special ed by school. The SRO, I know it's a new cost, but is that an MOA, Joe, or is that something we already have? I don't remember because we haven't paid for it before. Are we going to work on an MOA? So like my concern of that would be time on duty if they get pulled off of the school sites. Like what does that look like for our pay versus what they're doing non-school work?
Yeah, so that SRO program was put in place many years ago, as you know, as a result of Columbine, and we've been looking for an MOA to just determine a lot of the issues that you just mentioned. We've been unable to locate an MOA. We've reached out to NPPD; they have not been able to find an MOA. So that might be something that we have to come up with because we can't find any.
My worry would be like, hey, listen, if we're paying a whole salary, then it should be full-time school department. And, I think we have to be mindful of that.
We're not, we pay a percentage of all of the SRO salaries, but we don't pay a full salary of a particular person. It is shared. It's a shared service. And, Lisa.
If you contact East Greenwich, they have an MOA.
Okay, great.
Which I think they got that template from Pawtucket.
Yep.
We have one too, Joe. I was just curious if we had one.
Yeah,
we might have one, I'm sure, but nobody's been able to locate it.
So I know you mentioned the science, but the science, my concern is that part of the 260 because that's not till 2025, and I thought RIDE didn't have very many even approved yet for science.
I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
So 6 through 8 for Amplify is vetted green. And it's partially vetted for elementary and they're going in to fix those components and it's very minor. That didn't pass. So that's what they're doing right now. And the issue with that was the reason why we did it, was because our contract for FOSS kits was up. And I did not want to renew that because as you know, that is not vetted green at all. So I felt that it was definitely time to change up the curriculum and to a higher quality curriculum. And that's why we did that. So unfortunately, last year excuse me?
Is it K to 8 you said?
Yeah, 6 to 8 is vetted green and they're working on the elementary is vetted partially. And we did pilot and the teachers loved it, absolutely loved it. It's really an excellent program, all aligned, obviously, simulations like that, the way they're tested on the science assessment and of course, inquiry-based experimentation as well. So I think it's a very high quality curriculum and the teachers also agree with that as we piloted that. And the only issue that we had last year obviously was funding. So we couldn't implement it this year, but we will implement it next year.
And Joe, what year are we in for our capital improvement plan so far?
We have an asset protection plan, but there is no money in the capital account. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we're waiting for the final audit report.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, the 5-year plan that RIDE requires us to have for capital improvements.
Yeah, I think we're in year 2, correct, Lisa? We submitted a revised one last year.
Well, we submit them every year. Like I have to do an updated asset protection every year in June with RIDE.
Right. So we revised it last year based on all of the work that was done on the new schools and all of the.
Right.
So we revised it last year, and it is submitted every year, and we're in year 2.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I know for the 5-year plan, Joe, when you mentioned that when we did the referendum for the bond, the town council, as part of that, had to understand the increase for capital improvements based on the new schools. That would, when you mentioned the Educational Reform Act, that was all discussed with them, not only at the building committee, but at the town council meetings.
Yeah, Lisa and I had tried to get information from RIDE about all of that in terms of whether the bond payments for the new schools would count towards the maintenance of effort or the minimum maintenance. We haven't been able to get an answer from them on that.
And I think if we went back to even the town council minutes, we would find our minutes when we had those conversations with them. I know, Rod, you were there with me when we had those conversations. And where is the truancy officer budgeted as far as employees? Like which one of the categories?
Well, they're not our employee. We pay the town. We actually do a transfer to the town. And that's what that safety line is, because went back and couldn't find where it was budgeted previously. I think we were actually adding it to the same line where the maintenance portion we were paying the town was. And I just separated it out this year because it was
The truancy?
No, Lisa, not the SROs, but Mr. Massey.
I'm sorry. They're part of the administrative buildings. We have 1.5 staff members that work. Yep, there's one full-time and one part-time. I was thinking SRO.
That's really what I'm gonna need, Joe, in order for me to like just do my due diligence.
Yep, I think Ms. Castanelli, Ms. Van Avery should be able to get all that together for you this week and we'll get it to you delivered.
Thank you.
Are you all set, Mrs. Picard? Okay, anyone else have any clarification questions?
Dr. Platt, I just have one point I would like to make. There is misinformation out in the general domain that the public schools are going to be awash in federal funds that are going to solve all of our budgetary needs, and that a second stimulus, as you know, has been passed about a month ago by Congress, but we have received no information about how much money we're getting, and we've not received any money. The preliminary information that we have heard is that the federal money will be primarily for learning loss. I'm sure Mrs. Picard can speak to this, but the federal money that we get is going to have to be, from what we're hearing, for new programs, new initiatives, potentially, hopefully new personnel, specifically on top of the operational budget to address learning loss. So while it's printed in the newspaper or you hear on the news that the schools are going to get, there's going to be federal stimulus money to help the schools, that money does not and cannot be used for operations, cannot be used for contracts, fringe benefits, healthcare, transportation, all the things that I went over tonight. That would be for new initiatives for learning loss. Potentially, there could be some leeway to help us with the ongoing PPE costs and stuff like that. But we are not going to be awash in extra money it's going to solve our operational budget.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Lisa, you have all those requests from Mrs. Picard. So if you can forward that to us when you compile that information, hopefully prior to next Wednesday, that would be great. Thank you. I just have some clarifications. If you go to the slide with impact of COVID pandemic, I just have one question there. When you submit for your COVID reimbursements, are you getting those in upon request? How does that work?
So every month I have to go through and see what we've spent for that month, and I put in a reimbursement request with the state, and we are getting them pretty quickly. By the following month we're getting. So I'm still actually putting into the CRF funds. We still have, the money had to be spent by December 30th, but they know that everything's not paid yet, so we're still submitting for reimbursement for those.
So is there anywhere in the budget where the request for reimbursements will carry us into the next fiscal year? You have a good handle on separating the fiscal years with the reimbursements?
Right. The ESSER funds, as you know, we apply to fiscal year 20. The CRF funds will all be in 21, as well as the capital, the capital grant that we also got, which was part of COVID. I think we'll have all spent this year also.
Okay, thank you. Slide 2021 projected revenues. So you're expecting a decrease of about $175,000 in Medicaid?
Yes, because of the lack of a reduction in one-to-one services.
And a plus of 150,000 in miscellaneous and tuitions?
Right, that's a more accurate reflection of what we've been bringing in, because the tuitions for PTAC and things like that have been going up every year as we bill for additional students. So I just wanted to be a little more accurate
Okay,
on what we're showing.
that's good. Thank you. Projected areas of increases? No.
I think it's slide 6.
Okay. On the professional and technical services, the $1 million, when you're indicating that RIDE mandated new curriculum, math and science, is that included in the $1.3 million increase in state aid? Or is that a separate amount?
That's a separate amount, Dr. Plata. So RIDE is mandating new curriculum in English, math, and science phased in as the district sees fit. The increase in state aid is based strictly on enrollment per pupil, attendance, free and reduced lunch numbers, high need populations, as you know, special ed and ELL. It does not say we're giving you this money so that you can fund the curriculum. That mandate came with no additional money.
Right.
In fact, let me also add, Louise, you can jump in here for a second.
Yeah.
That law was in effect last year, but there was a $35,000 decrease in state aid.
Hmm.
So we had to postpone it a year because we got less money from the state. But go ahead, Louise, anything you want to add?
No, I thank you so much, Superintendent Goho. I just wanted to add that, I want to remind the committee that we also got that comprehensive literacy grant for $300,000, which is helping us to purchase ELA materials, and of which we are piloting 2 programs this year, high quality programs, both of them. So that's not going to go through the budget because we got that grant. Unfortunately, there's not grants like that available for every curriculum item. So I also want to point out that that amount is projected and it's spaced out over 3 years. It's paid out over several years. It's not just one lump sum. So I just, and I'm going to review those amounts with Ms. Castanelli in terms of what is the best way to purchase it for our district. So we'll get the most efficient way of purchasing the materials. And, it will be definitely the most prudent decision that we make for the school district. So I just want to point those 2 things out.
Okay, thank you. My point is that RIDE is mandating, excuse me, 2 curriculums, math and science. So the money expended there is restricted money for the math and science curriculums, and there's no money that will follow that mandate.
Correct. And that, you have to purchase the curriculum, purchase the supplies and the resources, the workbooks, the textbooks, the software that may go with that, and then provide the training. And none of that is funded.
So it's just another quote of an unfunded mandate.
Yep. Correct. So when people talk about state aid increases, as Mr. De Silva has said many times, they're giving you money to pay their bills.
And you forgot professional development to be able to implement the resources.
Yeah, I mentioned exactly.
Yeah, but can I just interject one? But the PD, Gina, as you know, I can put that through Title II. So that's a positive thing. I put all the professional development aligned. I try to fit everything into, Title II as much as I can.
Right.
Yeah, but we also
Yeah,
have to pay the salary. We have to pay the
Yes.
salary for the teachers for the additional day, which is $140,000, and that cannot be put through Title II. That's an
No.
impact on the general budget.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, projected fringe benefits. Lisa, are you confident with the 6% increase working rate? Or that is still going to be a moving target?
Well, that's what he projected when I was putting the budget together based on our claim history, for the year so far.
So that's the number the company gave you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Projected capital outlays. Mr. Goho is correct. We do not have a capital account at this point in time. My intention is to speak to the mayor and the town council about setting up a capital account. School district does have a capital account. I think we need a capital account because if we do not have a capital account, chances are that money is going to cut into our surplus, and that should not happen. So I just want you to know what my intention is with that.
Dr. Palat, if I can also add, I would have liked to have put, and I should have put a bullet on that. We've talked about this. We know that there's probably a town collaboration that has to occur with this, but we really would like to add a playground at Centerdale. It is the only school in the district that does not have a playground. I know it's been a priority for you and the school committee members in that area as well, and they have the land. So that's really something else that we would like to have happen.
I agree. Okay, my last question is on the last slide, projected town appropriation.
That's where I was headed.
I just want to make sure that, we all have an understanding of this, because last year we had some discrepancy in terms of the amount of money and the amount of allocation from the town. So Lisa, see if you can follow me on this. From 2017 to 2021, that's over the last 5 years, we had an average increase of about $100,000 a year from the town. I'd be correct in saying that based on what's listed here?
You're going to average it over the 5 years, yes.
Yes. So the discrepancy we had last year in FY20 was the $400,000 that we contested the fact that we did not receive that $400,000. But that $400,000 was placed in the budget as part of our operating cost. And it was included in the town allocation, as I recall. So if you take that $400,000 against the $300,000 in FY20, we actually got $100,000 less. Are you with me so far?
That's
Yes.
correct.
We said that we did not receive the $400,000. The town indicated that the $400,000 was part of their appropriation. So in FY20, we got an increase of $300,000, but in actuality, we had a decrease of $100,000.
Correct, Dr. Pallotta. That was confirmed by the auditor, if you recall.
Okay, thank you. So if you use the same calculation that I just indicated to you from 2017 to 2021, the average increase would have been $100,000.
Over 5 years?
For the 5 years.
No, 25.
So the 300,000 becomes a minus 100,000.
Yeah.
So it's 100,000 over
So
5
you
years
take-
divided by
Take
5.
the 200,000
It's 20,000 a year.
minus the 100,000. That's $20,000 per year for those
Correct.
5 years.
Yep.
You following my logic on that,
Absolutely.
Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. So the average increase basically for those 5 years was $20,000 from the town as an increase for those 5 years. So the 1.186 million in FY22 that we are requesting, plus the addition of the $100,000 average, we've basically requested from the town with our new request of 1.186 million for the 6 years is about $215,000 roughly, which is not a lot of money.
No, it is not.
Following that, take the $100,000 that we just agreed upon for the 5 years. Add that to the 1.186977, right? And then divide that by 6.
Correct.
So our
It's
average increase for the 6 years is about $215,000.
Correct. That's correct.
I just,
Yep.
I just want to point that out to you. It's not to point the finger any place, but it's just a point of clarification when you're looking at the budget and you're looking at a request of 3.48%. It seems like a lot of money, but I think when you average it out for the 6 years, $215,000 on an average request is really not a lot of money. So we've been able to manage our budgets with that over the last 6 years. And kudos to the school department and school committees, certainly prior to me and including the new school committee, for managing the amount of dollars that we have received. Now, I certainly know that and very cognizant of the fact that the state has increased their appropriation to us. But I think we can't continue down the path when the state increases our appropriation that the town gives us less, because over a period of years, it's not going to equal out in a good way. So I think we have to, when we present our budget to the town, we have to really make that point, because we're really not gaining anything if the state is going to increase and the town is going to maintain the maintenance of effort number. I think we need to, really talk to the mayor and the town council and see if we can really secure, at least if we can't secure the 1.1 million, but something close to that in our budget going forward for FY22. This is not a criticism. This is just a basic fact of the numbers as you see them in front of you. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, and that it's a point of clarification. We certainly had this discussion at the town council meeting last year. I did point out a lot of this, but obviously, we received the money that we received, and we'll continue to work with the town. I will continue to talk to the mayor and the town council regarding a budget appropriation to see what we can do with that. I certainly don't know what the municipal responsibilities are at this point. We only know the responsibilities on the school side, but we're going to cooperate with them the best that we can to make sure that we secure a budget that we can give the best education that we can to our kids. So if anybody else had any comments on that, I'd be happy to take them. If anybody else has any clarifications on the budget, you can speak to that. If Mr. De Silva.
So a clarification, and I wanted to talk about that last slide. The reason that we've been level funded so often has been because of the state aid increases. And if we go back to the fair funding formula, and then the advent of the charter school movement, and the increase in state aid was never to deter the town from increasing our budget or their maintenance of effort or increasing it. It was to pay the state's bills. And I know I say this all the time. They give us money to pay their bills. So that was my clarification. My request would be that as we have our budget session next Wednesday, that we could have a clarification or a firm understanding or a presentation of something or some sort, what the state money that we have to pay, charter school, busing, and what those amount to, and then how that's offset, because state money is not free money. It's encumbered money. And I say this all the time, they give us money to pay their bills. So I think that needs to be part of the budget discussion as we go forward next session.
Okay, thank you. You have that, Lisa?
Yes, I have that.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
So I just want to make sure that with our budget workshop scheduled for February 3rd at 6 o'clock, everybody has a good understanding of the numbers. we want to make sure that this budget season that we're all using the same numbers as we go forward. Okay, thank you. Assistant Superintendent's report.
Dr. Plata, before I turn it over to Mrs. Heisinger, I just want to point out I'm in possession of an email from the Department of Education, and it comes from Lisa Furr and Phyllis Lynch, two high-ranking members of RIDE who've been there for many, many, many years. And the email mentions that they have been reviewing district yearly survey works data. And they noted that in North Providence, the teaching staff responded more favorably than their peers across the state about the quality and the relevance of the professional learning or the professional development opportunities provided in North Providence. So I wanted to point that out because that is a direct reflection of the work done by Mrs. Seitzinger, Ms. Van Avery, the building principals, our department chairs, and the content leaders. So to get a good email like that and actually have data to support that teacher efficacy and satisfaction with professional learning is at a high level, I thought that they deserve the public acknowledgement of that. So thank you, Louise. Thank you, Cindy. And with that, Louise, you can continue with your report.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Goho. I really appreciate that. And again, I want to comment that, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with our team. And I do want to thank Special Ed Director Van Avery and our teachers and our principals and the content leaders and high school department chairs. Everybody works together, so diligently and is focused on the goals of our district. And I'm really, really grateful. So thank you.
Louise, I just want to mention one thing, by the way. When I called on Ms. Van Avery during the budget, she is there. She was there. There's a problem with her microphone that Mr. Nahejian has been unable to resolve. So I just wanted the committee to be aware of that.
I know that happened to me one night, Cindy. Sorry about that.
She is there.
Yes.
Hey, go ahead, Louise.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Chairman Pilata. Wanted to just say thank you. Wanted to just review a few things, and I won't read the whole entire report because you have it in front of you, but we just had our Professional Development Day, as you know, statewide PD Day. The whole state participated on January 25th. And so we had multiple things happening that day. It was differentiated at all levels with many, wonderful activities happening from preschool to elementary to middle school to high school. Of note is the work that we're doing with our 2 ELA pilots at the elementary level. There was things happening with Sergeant Center, working with specialists on functional behavior assessments and utilizing data to develop behavior plans. And the specialists in art, music, PE, and library collaborated to and planned on units of study. The middle school also had PD on those pilots in math, in Reveal and illustrative math. And also we had a session from Bradley, which was very interesting in youth mental health on depression and anxiety overview. Unfortunately, extremely relevant during this time. And again, specialists got together and they collaborated. And I want to also mention at the elementary level, we were able to have facilitated grade level meetings just for a short time. And I want to thank the principals and our 2 coaches, Stephanie Ganem and Steph Capraro, for helping to facilitate those meetings. Great conversations and some collaboration happening there. So we're really happy about that. And then the high school did a fabulous job with an ed camp that part of their day. And I was able to go into several sessions, which were really exciting, again, led by teachers, just wonderful. So check out some of those examples of what they did. And also teachers participated in department meetings later on to review curriculum assessments and instruction. I wanted to mention a couple of things that I didn't put on here, but that is that K registration's happening and it will be online, of course, starting February 1st. We're sending out a message to all parents and guardians on Friday. And there is K information on our website, including resources, a welcome to all parents, and just expectations of what kindergartners will be expected to know and do, and things that parents can use with their children before they enter kindergarten. And another thing I did not put on there was we are applying for that Green Ribbon Schools grant, which was from the U.S. Department of Education for our 2 new schools, McGuire and Stephen Only. So I want to thank Janine Napolitano and Bruce Butler and Jimmy and Scott for helping, and also the SLAM architects helped us also, Kathy Ellithorpe and Glenn. So I want to thank the team for helping out and also some teams from their schools. And we'll be sending that in before February 1st. And if we do receive that, it's not a monetary award, but it's a recognition in terms of 3 pillars of reducing environmental impact, improving health and wellness of students and staff, and also providing effective environmental and sustainable education. So I'll let you know how that goes. Stay tuned. And just, as you know, we the last week of December and the first full week of January, our students were in distance learning. And then they came back the week of January 11th, and the high school remains on the hybrid model, which has been very effective. I just wanted to briefly share our access testing results for our multilingual learners. As Mr. Goho said, we've really, I think when I came here, we were under 90 students as multilingual learners. It's now up to 257, which is a wonderful thing in terms of our district. So I've just showed you the results in comparison to the state. And over the past 3 years, what you want to see is if you look at the expanding, bridging, and reaching, you want to see the kids going towards that, because that means they're becoming more successful in those areas as multilingual learners. And it's a little bit challenging because obviously all the time you have new students coming in. They could be newcomers to our country and so forth. But we started in 2017-18 at a 17.5% in those 3 areas. And now we're up to 24%. And there's a mistype in the state results. It's 24% in expanding, bridging, and emerging, not 21%. So I just wanted to show you that and share that. And the state is at 21.3%. So we're slightly higher. And our goal is to obviously increase and decrease the gaps in achievement, increase achievement. So one of the things that we're using for interventions with our multilingual learners is the Lexia program, and we find it extremely successful for those students. And we're also using it with our special needs students, and for our at-risk students in literacy, we're finding a lot of success with that. I wanted to mention the Scripps District Spelling Bee, which is going to be virtual, and you'll all be invited. It's Thursday, February 4th at 6:30. So 16 students in grades 4 through 8 will be competing, and we'll be sending that information out to you. And then just a note about the presidential inauguration. I thought it was important to share because it's such a momentous and historical occasion, obviously, in our time. Students and teachers across the district took part in participating and observing the presidential inauguration on January 20th. And I sent them a friendly hyperlink, which was shared with all the teachers and as well as other resources that they could use. And that's it. Some pictures there from Wayland Elementary of the week that we had students in distance learning. And that's Mrs. Bocio at Wayland. And just happy and healthy New Year to all of you.
Same
Thank
deal.
you, Mrs. Seitzinger. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. Job well done. Next item on the agenda, we have no school committee reports. We have no old business. Item number 11, new business. Item A, consider and vote on purchase of the van from the town. You all have that information. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion made.
Motion
I
by
second that.
Silva, second by
second
Mr. Andriozzi. Are there questions?
Almost
Hearing
set.
none, hearing none. All those in
I
favor?
have questions. I raised my hand, Dr. Pilata.
I'm sorry, I didn't have you on my screen. Sorry, you weren't on my screen. Yes, Mrs. Picard.
So I still need clarification about the last 2 vans, trucks, whatever we've had. Have we paid for them in the past? Because when I looked at what I was sent, it said, there was one van that we had, which I knew of was the box truck, I think it was. And then I was unaware that we had this flatbed, and it looked like the town provided those vehicles. They maintain those vehicles. And then now we're getting a new one because the other one no longer is functioning. So why now are we paying? Or is it not correct that we've been paying all along for all of these vehicles?
I do not know the answer to that. As you know, I was not superintendent when the whole merger and the criteria and the expectations of that merger were put together. I can't even tell you if we paid for any of those other vehicles or not. Just that the vehicle that we have now doesn't meet our needs. I don't know if Mr. Ferroli can add anything to it. But I can't answer that question. All I do know is I was approached by the town mechanic saying that you had a van that was for sale, that they were going to put out to market for sale, but that in a conversation with Mr. Feroli had said, oh, the school department could be interested in this. It would be a good vehicle for the school department. So I looked into it. And then I asked Mr. Feroli and Mr. Olson if it was a need, if they recommended it. They said yes, and so that's why it's on the agenda, and the price is $4,000.
So when we got the flatbed, I thought you had said the box truck was out of commission, and we got the flatbed maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, and this is without knowing for sure, that we were provided vehicles by the town, and so there were times when the town needed to switch out those vehicles when they needed them for their own services. So they lent us a vehicle when they had the opportunity to give us a vehicle. And then when their vehicles broke down, they would take that vehicle back because they had, town services that they had to perform. And so that would leave us without a vehicle, at no one's fault. And so this is the opportunity for us to have our own vehicle without having to be dependent on the town, or without the town having to take back the vehicle when they need it.
Dedicated.
Yes, that's probably the rationale for this.
I have a question as well. May I
Yes,
ask a question?
Andriozzi.
So do we currently own Mr. Massey's car that he drives? Which is a former police car, I believe.
I believe so, Steve.
We do not own that car.
No,
But he said-
I believe we do.
Yeah, we
Who
do.
is- When we say we, is it the school department
School
or the
department, yeah,
town?
the school department,
School department.
yes.
So we maintain, who pays for the maintenance of that vehicle? Sorry, Stephen.
The
I
town,
thought-
That's quite all right.
the town.
Yeah,
Who
the
would pay for
town-
the maintenance of this vehicle?
The town pays for the maintenance, and also, I
Fuel.
believe we tank up at the town pump, Jimmy?
Correct. That's correct.
Maintenance and gas.
Mr. Andriozzi?
No, so the answer to the question is the school department owns Mr. Massey's vehicle that he currently uses. Does anyone else use a vehicle? I know you use one, but yours is through the town, correct?
Yes,
Yes, and now what about the van that is used by Mr. Ivorone?
you know what, Steve, I don't know about that one. I never see the insurance card. That's how I know that the school department owns, because I get the insurance cards.
Okay, so the one that Mr. Ivorone owns could be the town's property or school department property, we don't know.
Right.
Okay, and no one else has a vehicle other than those, okay.
Okay. Now, there was a motion and a second.
Yes, I'll second it, yes.
It was a motion by Mr. De Silva.
Correct.
It was seconded by
Mr. Andriozzi.
Marciano and Mr. Andriozzi.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Any additional questions on the van? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
6 yeas and 1 nay. Motion carries.
Just one quick clarification. Mr. Goho, you said 4,000. Is it 4,000 or 4,500?
In the last correspondence that I received, it indicated 4,000.
Perfect, thank you.
Item B, consider and vote purchase of the school safety glass.
Just to give you a little bit of background to refresh your memory, we are in the process of completing the upgrades to the 3 elementary schools, Greystone, Centerdale, and Wayland, in terms of their security system to bring them on par with the 2 elementary schools. And so we petitioned the town council last year to utilize Kids Club money up to a certain amount. And we have installed cameras and fobs. And the last phase is to install security glass in the foyer of those buildings, so that it would be those buildings will be comparable in all ways in terms of security with the 2 new schools, including this safety glass, which was built with the 2 new schools. So we wanted to go out to bid to see if we could find a better price than what we were finding. We did go out to bid, and it appears it's definite that we're better off going with a company that's on the state master price agreement. It's indicated in your packet what it will cost us. Again, that money for the 3 elementary schools is in the Kids Club money already approved by the town council. We are actually under budget in that whole entire project by about $20,000, if I had to guess at this point. And then we also want you to approve the bid because we would like to do the same at the 2 middle schools and the high school so that all of our schools will really all be on the same level in terms of security. So the 3 elementary schools will be paid for, already allocated by the Kids Club money, and then we will make a determination on funding the safety glass at the 2 middle schools and the high school. Right now, we are looking at probably some reimbursements on our facility projects that we did in the fall using the COVID money. And so once we get some reimbursements from National Grid, that will provide us ample funds to do the same at the middle school or in the high school, or we could also use potential surplus money if we find that that is the case once we receive the audit. So I am asking the school committee to approve the purchase of that safety glass as indicated in your packet.
Move passage.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mr. Pollock. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, item C, consider and vote on bringing your home own device policy.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Plata. So in our technology usage policy, we did have some language about the bring your own device policy. So students bringing their own personal devices to school to utilize as part of our network. We had some language, but with the pandemic and the onset of virtual learning, we encountered a whole host of unintended issues and the need for a policy to address this specific aspect of technology use. So credit to Mr. Nahishian and the support that we received from Ben's office in looking at this policy. So I am asking that the school committee allow us to approve this policy and implement it. And if you recall, by the changes to our bylaws, we're able to do that with our one read.
Yep. Motion made.
Second.
Discussion?
Motion by Mr. De Silva. Who was second?
Second, Mr.
Mr.
Andrea.
Andriozzi. Questions? Mrs. Picard?
So I absolutely understand the premise. My thinking is, while I can appreciate you want it done quickly, Joe, my concern was that some of the language is very, it's put in a negative form, right? So it automatically assumes malintent on students' part, which I think we want to be mindful of our district mission and our vision, looking at our technology policies that while I understand, oftentimes we tell our kids, let's tell them what the rules are and not what the rules aren't. So I really think if we're going to model that kind of work, we want to be mindful that when we create policies that we don't embed language that could potentially revert back to sort of old, antiquated ways of looking at following the rules kind of thing. An example of that, hold on one second. I just want to pull it up on my screen. Sorry, hold on. Well, the one about cheating, Joe, and I can't seem to find it now. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. It was in the second bullet. So the BYOD may not be used to cheat on assignments or tests. Like I'm, could we say in a way that because that's technically, if we did our code of conduct, right, we would always refrain from plagiarizing. There's a way that we word it, and I can't find the language now, but just things like that, like really just going through that language to ensure that it meets sort of the and then it matches the handbooks, how we use it. My concern is just that it automatically assumes malintent on the kid's part. And I'm not necessarily sure why. I know it, and while I think it's great, are we 1-to-1, Joe, right now, pre-K through 12?
Yeah.
Or close.
Close. If I may,
Go ahead, Ralph.
so part of this policy is, and I'm speaking as a technology professional, not as an educator, okay? So I apologize.
No, it's fine, Ralph, I get it.
If I don't mean any malintent or any type of disrespect when I say it, but truly a lot of districts are putting these policies in place for that exact reason and to protect the district from what kids are doing wrong right now on the devices. So that's kind of how I took those experts from several districts throughout the state and through New England. I didn't go down south or out west or anything to try to keep it in our area. I pulled probably 25 of them and pulled different ones from each one. So that's kind of why it's worded the way it is. The bring your own device policy will approximately save us. Right now, it's going to save us $100,000 this year alone, because we have approximately 380 kids right now that have purchased. The families have purchased their own Chromebooks over the summer. So that saves us a lot of money. So
yeah, listen, my daughter preferred to take her Mac over using anything that the school would have provided. I get it. My thinking too is, like, for example, like one of the things that it says is about the printing. So as you all know, I mean, most kids will purchase their own work, but they won't even be able to print at home. So I know in the past, Joe, they've gone to the library, or if it's a hard drive, would now just saying if you have your own device, you just can't print from your laptop, or can they use a hard drive? Because I would think that would be a hardship too.
Usually when we do printing now, we're training the students to share with the teacher via Google Docs, and letting the teacher print, because this way there's a little more control over what is being printed.
So we'll still be able to support them should they need that.
Yes, they'll just share it. The instruction kind of we're giving, Louise, we've talked about this before, is we're giving them share it with the teacher to print. And at any time, if they're in the school, they can still log into a school device. Like in the library, they can still go in the library, log in, and then print in the library or any of the labs at the schools.
And Ben, the question about the school district has the right to collect and examine any personal device that is suspected of causing problems, or the sources of an attack or a virus infection. Who and how does that safeguard student, privacy on their own personal device?
It's only if they bring it to school.
Well, that's what this is.
I'm sorry, I'm here. Well, with respect to that, it depends on whether or not they bring the device to school. Exactly. And whether or not it's accessible to a password. So if it's accessible to a password, we don't have the ability to require that password be given to an administrator.
So when you read, like, this is for that, right? My understanding is that this is for them to bring their devices to school.
Correct, so, but they may, I'm thinking in a virtual setting. So in a virtual setting, there'd be no way to look at their device. If they bring their device to school and they voluntarily give the password and allow an administrator to look at it, or if they have something on their screen that's visible to the administrator, it can be accessed. Other than that, it can't be accessed.
That was kind of the intent, Gina, on that topic. So in other words, if a student is in class and say a complaint from another student in the class said, this person just sent me this, that the teacher has the ability to walk up and look at the student's computer, not log in with a password or anything, but they could actually say, what did you just send that student? And they can look and see that, which technically, if they do it in Google, we can see it anyway. It doesn't even matter what device. We can see it by their account. We can see it.
I would hate for us to get into some sticky situations because it says the right to collect and examine. And I think the definition of what does that mean?
If they're logged into their Google account, their school Google account, it's automatically connected. It's automatically collected.
But if they're not, if they're using a Microsoft PowerPoint, Word,
doesn't matter. As long as they're logged into their Google Chrome with their school account, everything is collected. whether they do it on a home computer, a school computer, or anything. It's their account that's collected, not the stuff on their computer, but what they do on Google Chrome with their school account. We actually had this problem over the summer where a father was trying to use the computer and he was getting blocked, and he was very upset, but he was unaware that he was trying to do something while the student was still logged into the school Google account.
Okay, and it's missing a section, so I'm not sure. On the second page, at that after those bullets, Ralph, it says, well, manner is incorrect. And then it says while in the, and then it doesn't say anything after that. Does it mean in the BOID agreement? Like, well, in the, is it? I don't know what it's supposed to say.
I don't know if there was a cutoff there or not on your side. Hold on.
Yeah, it's that, it's the sentence right after the last bullet. That's kind of.
Yeah, Ralph, we all went through it, so there might be a transmission issue that's causing something to be omitted.
And that happens. I just, like I said, because you wanted it tonight, Joe, that was my concern. Like I didn't
Well, I don't necessarily want it tonight, but the policy does allow you to vote on it tonight, is what I was just clarifying. Because that might be new with the new bylaw changes.
Are you all set?
well, I don't know what it's supposed to say. I think we have to, I don't have the full policy.
I'm trying to find it.
Oh,
Can we table?
why don't we, you don't have the full policy, you said?
There
No,
might have been a piece lost in transmission electronically.
So can we table?
So why don't we do this? Why don't we
just make it a first read.
withdraw the motion, and you can submit your concern to the school department. They'll review it. We'll put it back on the February 3rd agenda and vote on it at that point in time.
Yeah, well, I said I'm sure Norma Jean captured my concerns, and it just it's the sentences that sentences that are missing.
Wait, can you, Gina, could you just please, it's on for the first page?
You want me to forward it to you, what I have, Ralph?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
It's the scanned agenda that Norma, I'm looking at the scanned agenda that Norma Jean sent. I can forward it back to you.
Maybe we could have our courier deliver you a hard copy and we'll put it on next month.
No. This stuff I don't want in hard copy. That's too many
Hard
pages.
copy of the policy, so there's no transmission errors.
Well, you all, why do you have the last line, Rod?
No, I'm only on the meeting. I don't have it. I'm not opening up a new tab to go get it.
Where, Gina, what page was it? The first page or the second page or the?
It was
actual agreement?
technically it's the second page, I believe, but
Yeah.
it's right at the end before they do the signing of the agreement.
Oh, my legs.
Personal devices and their content may be inspected by the classroom teacher or principal anytime the teacher feels the student is using such device in an inappropriate manner while in the classroom.
So it's just missing in the classroom.
Okay, that must be it. Yeah, while in the classroom.
Is there
In other words-
anything else after that, Ralph?
No, there is nothing after that.
And so what I have next would be the next page, BOID agreement, please review and sign.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then it would just be the spelling error in that last paragraph, and then just my recommendations, just to look at the language about the, but that would be it. So I'm sorry, is it a first read and we'll put it to next week, or are we tabling it?
I suggest we
Well,
table
I
it.
think if you're satisfied with.
I'd like to have one more review of it, honestly, just if there's no hurry, Joe, I'd like to just I know we can always review policy anytime, but if it's no hurry. But if you need it for this week, I'm happy to approve, then we can go back.
We don't.
Okay. Just one more look at it.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mr. De Silva. Withdraw the second person who made the,
Andriozzi.
Mr. Andriozzi. You withdraw?
Yes, I will withdraw.
And Mr. Andriozzi and Mr. De Silva will collect their chits later.
Yes.
Okay, so Mrs. Picard, you're going to be in touch with Mr. Nahigian or Mr. Goho regarding those issues. And
Whoever you want me to be.
I can handle that, Dr. Pilata. I copy and paste it onto the
Okay.
template.
so
So
then
may have
just
just been
send
a,
that back out to us when you send the packet out on Friday.
Right.
We'll put it on the February 3rd agenda for a vote.
okay.
Everybody good with that?
Perfect.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of bills.
Motion made.
Motion by Mr. De Silva, seconded by Mr. Marciano. Questions?
Discussion, perhaps?
Discussion, Mr. De Silva.
Batch 6804, number 3, automatic heating. I had a question about installation, if that price was included in the installation. Or if installation was included in that price.
Mr. De
When they
Silva.
put out the bid.
That was pumps to replace for some of the COVID work we were doing at 2 of the elementary schools. So partially, most of that is getting covered by the capital grant or the CRF funds. And then we're getting partial reimbursement on each of those pumps from National Grid. So between both National Grid reimbursements and the COVID money, that's going to be all covered. That, I believe, was one of the projects that was voted on by school committee. Was it in October? I think we had presented 2 or 3 projects to be covered with some of the COVID funds.
Okay.
And that was one of them. So that's just for the pumps.
Okay.
I believe our plumber is doing an install.
So when we have installs for HVAC or plumbing or any of those things, do we pay a portion of that salary? Does it come out of our monthly allocation? I'd be interested in knowing how all that works going as part of our budget presentation too, because I don't have a firm handle on that.
On how much we pay for the town allocation for the maintenance?
Well, somebody, if a town employee does plumbing work at Wayland, do we pay for the hours he's there? Is it come out of a monthly piece?
Well, we have,
I know every month we
the
pay.
district has a plumber that we use. We do pay, say, for example, Scott's salary and Jimmy's salary. We pay the town a portion of their salary, as we do with Ralph for the tech department too. We don't pay anything additional when they do work for us because they work partially for us also.
Okay.
So if we have to hire an electrician or a plumber to do other stuff, then we went out to bid, I believe, at least for the electrician. Okay. Some of the plumbing we've been doing has been mostly COVID work right now.
Okay. How about batch 6749, numbers 4 through 8, affordable locksmith?
Well, we've put those invoices on hold because we can't seem to get clarification. One of the invoices was for some replacement keys for some of the 2 of the new schools, which we're not able to get. We have to get them through a locksmith. So one of those invoices we know is valid. The other, which Mary's trying to get some clarification because that vendor isn't very descriptive on his invoices. So okay. Mr. Froley and myself asked that she put those aside and pull them off the bill list and to get some further clarification on that.
And then same batch, numbers 12 and 14. And again, that's automatic heating. So at this point, we're having installations.
Well, these are for parts. Those particular invoices were just for some smaller parts. And anytime I see those, it's usually Scott is doing the installs on those. It's just some repair work and things like that.
And then we have the 37 through 58, KC EMI, custodial supplies. I'm assuming that these are regular supplies at all locations.
Yep, all the schools, even central office. 2 of the invoices were for some repairs on the floor scrubbers, I believe, at 2 different schools. Okay. So it's basically the regular supply stuff.
And these all get backed up by POs.
Yep.
And then number 75 was filters IN, filters in.
Yep, filters Inc. Yep.
Oh, ink. Got it.
Inc, yeah.
Got it.
So those are the regular replacement filters for the boilers that get changed, I think, twice a year.
Right, and then I didn't know what 96 through 99, what the Centerdale and Greystone projects are, but you said it's for UV lighting?
Yep, UV lighting. Those are the other two projects we approved a
Yeah.
couple of months back for the COVID. Yep.
All right, and numbers 135 to 177 is Lowe's,
hmm
and it looks like it's all on the same PO. So my concern was, if it's just a blanket PO, then how do we know the blanket PO is not covering stuff that shouldn't be under our blanket?
So the blanket PO was, the purpose of it was for the guys to go out and get smaller repair things they need to pick up. Sometimes it's batteries, sometimes it's just some things they need to get at Lowe's while they're working on a school. I did request that anything COVID related or that was a particular project they were working on be on separate POs. I know she hadn't filled in all the PO numbers, so I don't know whether she just didn't look them up.
Okay.
I mean, most of the purchases are small and most of them are little piecemeal things that they need to run out and get.
Yeah.
I did talk to Jimmy about any particular projects they're going to do, like they did replace some flooring at Birchwood, that be on a separate PO. So that way we can kind of track what's what.
And that's all done with a Lowe's credit card.
Right.
Do we get 5% off on that? Like,
That's a good question.
I know I have.
Yeah, we actually do.
Good, I would hope so. And then I saw Nez Construction. I realized that's the career tech in
Yeah.
Princeton, but I don't know why we have students going there, because I thought our district was Davies, unless they're offering something that Davies doesn't. I don't know why that.
And I think that's the whole basis for the career and tech is if the school is offering something that your current district or Davies isn't offering, they have the freedom to go really
Right.
go anywhere.
Even if you're offering it, they can go now. They have changed.
Oh.
They changed all those rules, Rod. You can go pretty much anywhere. Your district has certain ones in your venue, but if the parent provides transportation, they pretty much, all bets are off now, the way RIDE has the new guidance.
Ridiculous. 204 Pasquazzi asbestos.
Mhm.
Is asbestos also an Italian word like Pasquazzi? Not sure, but
That's an old company, Rod. They've been around for years.
yeah, I know. And I saw $10,000 at Wayland, and asbestos.
So, yeah, the
I'm
asbestos.
wondering if that's like an emergency type thing, or it was a bid.
Yes, that was an emergency. The flooring was actually coming up, the original flooring in one of the classrooms that needed to be professionally mediated.
Okay, number 210 is pro property maintenance, and we had that one snowstorm in December, and it's almost $22,000.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I thought snow plowing was done internally and not going out to vendors. I'm wrong. And what is the role of the custodians in this? I thought the custodians were responsible for paths and walkways and those kind of, because it's a snow.
That I can't answer. I do know, I think we're in the last year of the contract with this particular company because I questioned it, looking at the bills from last year when I was working on the budget, that it was really expensive, I think. But again, I don't know enough about snow plowing to know. Maybe that is what the
Right.
rate is.
Yes.
Yeah, Jimmy could
So ever since I've been here, the snow plowing has always been done by a vendor before I got here.
Okay.
So we put this out to bid several times. Each year, only one vendor comes for the bid. Now, the custodians used to do the sidewalks, just shovel the sidewalks.
Right.
And when John was here, our workman's comp rate from them shoveling was so high, it was worth us giving out. Because that's how much it dropped our workman's comp rate.
That makes sense. So the snowplow rate went higher, but the more complicated workman's comp got lower because you have more exposure to workman's comp than you do to that. Well, that's a smart move, actually.
Because it may not snow, remember.
It may not snow, and workman's comp, you may own somebody for a long time. So
Yep.
that's good. And then I saw Santoro Oil, and I just I'm thinking, don't we have gas at the high school? I know that's not a big number, but
It's the emergency generator, Rod.
got it. Okay. And then my other question was on the statewide, number 242 and 243. And it says it's a fixed cost, so $15,000, is that quarterly, monthly?
So that was a monthly adjustment based from fiscal year 20. So when the state originally, when COVID and everything shut down, the state, we weren't getting billed by statewide and they weren't paying their contractor for busing either. And then I guess through negotiations, they realized they were going to pay their vendor, an additional amount for that time.
Yeah,
So
well,
what
I do remember when we were having conversations.
Right.
Yeah, when we were having conversations with our vendor, we said, well, the state shut theirs down, but I guess
Right.
that
But they
had
ended up paying,
second
so,
thoughts.
yeah.
So they
So
kicked
they had a monthly adjustment, which I think is probably almost paid. I want to say it was approximately $60,000 that was going to be billed to us monthly until it was paid. So
Okay.
that really is for last
And
year.
then the other one is PO 193, 95,000, and that is now, and this is what I think we need to talk about, at least for my clarification, next month. That and almost $300,000, over $300,000 we spent on those charter schools. Does any of that money come to us in terms of state aid, or so like the $95,000 is for private schools, special education transportation, CTE transportation, the charter school? I know the money follows the student, but how much of that, $80,000 alone on Davies, how much of that is money that the state provides to us? We take it in with our left hand, we write a check, and we send it out with our right hand. Is that the
So monthly, we get a transportation offset, which is on the statewide invoice. And it's really only approximately like 24,000, maybe a month, around there. And then we do bill Davies, like I had talked about, we bill them yearly for busing.
Okay.
And I believe prior to 20, because that was an odd year, it was about $86,000 we would collect from Davies for the busing. So we do have some offsets, but I know what you're saying, that the charter school, I don't believe we get any type of offset on that. And the tuition's really jumped this year, quite a bit, so.
Yeah, I think it's going to get more interesting as the cabinet member to the Chamber of Commerce, as she leaves and the charter school guru moves in. Well, thank you for all of your answers to all my questions.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any additional questions on the budget? Chair will entertain a motion for approval of bills.
We have that. Those are on, we did that.
It was
think we
Mr. De
did.
Silva and Mr. Marciano. Any, no
Correct.
additional questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, use of property request.
Motion made.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Silva, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Any questions?
Just a discussion. I know I read it, and Mr. Zamorelli is insinuating in his letter that it might have been last year, the year before, that we said Babe Ruth comes first or something like that. I just want to make sure that we're not going to let anyone else not use the field should a need arise. That's all.
You want to make that part of the motion?
I don't have a problem with the way he wrote the letter, as long as we're all in the same understanding that there may be another request to use that field, and we may feel that it. Here's my opinion: if it comes to us, it's already been vetted at the facilities or at the school department level. If they don't want it to happen, it won't come to us. So if it does come to us, then I think they're asking us just to make it official. And in that case, we're kind of like a rubber stamp. I don't have a problem with that. It should be vetted somewhere else. The day-to-day people should be vetting who's using our buildings and or our facilities. So if it does come, if for another group, junior league, whatever, comes forward and we get it here, then at that point, I think it's up to the school department or facilities manager, somebody, to make sure that all of the players are being accommodated. That's all I'm saying. I don't have a problem voting on what's in front of us.
Okay.
It's my understanding that it doesn't come to us unless the expectation is we're saying yes.
Good point. Understood. Any other
I just want-
discussion?
I just want to add, I mean,
Go ahead.
I know there's been like hiccups with the facilities usage, but I do want to say, Mrs. Amarelli and that the whole Babe Ruth League, they've done a ton of in-kind services. So I don't want that to go unnoticed, that
Yep.
should that without that happening, that's an addition to our budget. And without those services provided, I always thought that league did a very nice job with those in-kind services and supporting the community as a whole. So, and I've always found them to be very reasonable. I would hate for that to that go unsaid.
No, yeah, totally agree. My son played in Babe Ruth. He won the President's Award and all
I
that stuff.
concur with that also.
Yeah.
Lou
Uh,
Lambrello.
My point is,
concur with all
if
of
something
that.
else comes across to us and we go ahead and approve it because it was vetted and sent to us, then it needs to go seamlessly. That's all I'm saying.
Very good. Thank you. No other concerns or questions?
Yes,
Hearing none- Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, before we close out the meeting, I just want to revisit one last thing. Getting back to the van issue.
On the use of
and-
property?
We got to
No,
vote
no,
on, we got to vote on this first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we already voted on it. I'm sorry.
On the use of property request, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no requests to address the committee. We have no pending business. Mr. Andriozzi.
Yes, just quickly. Just so that we understand that if we have ownership of that vehicle, that we in turn should receive a title to the school department. The title follows the vehicle. It's plain and simple. There is no more vehicles sold without a title any longer in the state of Rhode Island. So that the title follows the vehicle. I just want to be sure so that we don't have the question again, is that vehicle ours? Is it the town's? I understand we're all one, but if we're paying for it, I think the title should be transferred to the school department as such with the vehicle. I think it's an important aspect in the purchase of the vehicle. I don't know how we go about it. I don't know, who we speak to about that, but it's the important part of the purchasing the vehicle.
And is that something that you could handle for the district to make sure that gets done properly?
Yes, of course I can. Also, Jimmy could order a copy of the title from the Department of Transportation. And then once it comes in, the mayor's office can execute the back of it and transfer it to us.
The mayor's office should already have a copy of that title.
Yeah, exactly. They own the car.
They own the vehicle.
If they have it, they have it. If they don't.
Transfer of title is
it
very
can be ordered.
simple. God almighty.
But if you'd like me to do it, I'm happy to.
And also find out about the vehicle that Mr. Massey uses as well.
I will.
If that's owned by us, we'd also like the title in that for that vehicle as well.
Will do.
That's the simplest thing in the world to do, transfer a title.
Okay, so noted.
Thank you, sir.
Hearing no other business, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe.
Have a good night.
Hey.